Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
G'day and welcome to an extra produced edition of Thrash and Treasure, the Torture Chamber musical comedy podcast that produces and reproduces episodes to the cow scum home pregnant. And speaking of scum, I'm Aaron, and guess what? We've won ourselves an Olivier Award-winning producer diva tumbling out of bed and stumbling into the studio today. So let's unbutton our Benjamins because things are about to get curious. But with our first theatre producer joining us, I could introduce this legend in our insanely stupid way while showing off my particular set of skills, or I could be a grown-up about it. So let's de-age and de-evolve as I divulge this diva's involving inventory of inventive, inspiring, and intelligent installments within the intensely indulgent environment of English and, incidentally, international theatre, where this intriguing impresario's impulses instigated an impressive imprint of imaginative ideas and implementations, including his incredible intimate interview with Caroline Sheen, which I inadvertently produced and interrupted, interested in inviting him into my torture chamber. But now it's time to Avenue Q&A with the CEO of RDL and GOAT of ATG, where there's no I in team, however there is in Olympics. So now he's ditching the heavy medals for heavy metals to let the maddening reign over us all. Yet out of that chaos rises this unmissable theatre god and king of thy Estes and all that fall with them, as this Aussie king of wishful thinking makes a big mistake, huge Aussie g'day, along with a simple 8 or so big fish fresh off the ice, cause I spies with my little eye off 9 to 5, 4 seasons, 3 Musketeers, 2 stays at Tesco's, and 1 Midsummer Night's Dream in the Plaza Suite before I return to the Forbidden Planet with the King. And I head over the riverline to get down tonight at the Cafe Pacific, where we'll flash dance with Pride and Prejudice in the trial heats of the Cafe Society swing dance, where the guys and dolls legally bond. But where is Peter Rabbit? No doubt firing off on all cylinders with some pretty woman walking down the street on a sunny afternoon, looking to do a little dance and make a little love by the gaslight of an electric fireplace. Wow, turns out rabbits really do spam a lot. Ew. So now that I hear crickets, let's cycle through a Paralympic-sized sporting events in this marathon career, which has taken him from child Chidean to faith healer after Mother Goose Dorothy Duxbury directed him from Black Bull to Barcelona, then around the world and up Sunset Boulevard in a streetcar named Dear Evan Hansen, where this son rose up and entered a dolly's house to find a pussycat doll, and things are just getting wilder from here. So before I'm ready for my nap time, Mr. DeMille, let's do our part in welcoming to our madhouse a retired actor, overtired producer, and now old chum. Well, I should be so lucky, and I am, because life is a cabaret now that I can finally introduce the Olivier Award-winning producer, Mr. Richard Darbourne. Welcome to the Torture Chamber. How's it going?
My goodness, that's
I survived.
very well. Very nice to be here with you, and thank you for that. I've listened to a couple more of them, and I kind of knew there was something coming, but it surpassed even expectation how much you managed to put into that supreme intro. How glorious. Yeah, that's 20 years of producing. Not all of those, by the way. I shouldn't say I originated.
Yeah, I was a bit like...
It's worth clarifying.
I can't find a resume. That's your fault.
No. That I mean, there's for the first half. I've still got my old. I mean, I've now been with ATG for over 10 years, but I do actually. My old website can be found online, and that's where actually when I was freelance for 10 years, those shows that you mentioned, All That Fall and Thyestes and Barber's Opera, and that's how it all kind of began. And picking up other shows that theatre companies like Leicester Curve did, Legally Blonde, and took it to Korea of all places. And so that's kind of how I managed to kind of cobble it together and get going. And then through ATG, Evan Hansen, for example, we've just toured via Nottingham Playhouse, which has been amazing. And actually, yes, even though there was now, if you look online, there's a lot of different producers. Michael Harrison supremely leading on the US version of Sunset. But, funnily enough, because ATG originated the Jamie Lloyd company and worked with Jamie, who's now is just doing incredible things. Actually, then in my role there, we were always trying to work, and there was always this conversation about Nicole doing something, and it was going to be whether it was going going to be a veto, what it was going to actually be. And then actually, as it turned out, we were just finishing Pretty Woman in the Savoy. And being honest, there's this amazing comedian, Paul O'Grady, the late Paul O'Grady, who was doing Annie. It's been published now, actually, so it's not top secret, this. The idea was Annie was going to go over into the Savoy, and he very sadly passed away. So there was this gap in the Savoy. So suddenly the Alchemy of Theatre came in, the Hail Mary went in and said, look, this is it, the dates align, it's possible now. And it all happened and became this incredible production, which has just concluded its run on Broadway. So anyway.
I agree, though. Hail Mary, Lily Savage.
Yes.
Not Paul O'Grady. What are you talking about?
Sorry, you're absolutely right. Yes. It's Lily Savage, the great, but very nice, and very nice to be reminded of all those shows along the way. That Pride and Prejudice was a two-handed version. It was really incredible. That still plays in a small theatre in Hungary, so it's lovely that these things still have other lives elsewhere as well.
They do some really interesting theatre in Hungary, I've noticed. Their Rent recording was actually pretty cool. It's called Bear, B-E-R. And you can see some of their performances, like obviously people film it and they put them online. Probably not legally, so I shouldn't be talking about it with a producer. But some of what they've done, well, what I've seen coming out of Hungary in particular, has been quite interesting and different.
Yeah, I'm actually going there in October because the production of Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is happening there, and which is great to see any version of Hunchback, really, isn't it?
Yes.
I missed the concert. There was a concert in London recently, which just I've seen online as being absolutely magical, and it is. It's kind of incredible score. Anyway, there's this production in Budapest, and they have this kind of rep model, which I'm kind of fascinated by as well. The idea that you can do these big shows, but then ship them in, ship them out with others. All very good.
Yeah, and they have a point of difference, which we'll maybe get to later. But I just on one last thing on your introduction. Are you surprised that Faith Healer and The Trial were in there, and your college performances where you were acting on stage?
Yes, because I wondered which baaack disclosed that nugget.
You're not going to believe how I found them.
That is, and you mentioned them, and I thought, God, did I put those things down? Because, yeah, for clarity, the great thing at university was you get to do these brilliant roles. I did Faith Healer with Holly Finlay, actually, who is now an established director. And anyway, now how did you hear about these things?
Online reviews.
Oh, good. I think they're quite favourable.
They were, but that's what every theatre creative and performer wants to hear. That's how someone found out about them, through reviews.
Wow. Yeah, correct. I mean, actually, it is a complicated thing, and I do think it's in the professional world. And now, because actually, I'm just not sure how much value it carries with an audience, actually, who will basically kind of go to social media and things like that, or speak to friends and etc. So in a way, that I do think the readership of these things are less, and so therefore they're trying to be more kind of headline grabby in them, and tends to be about the column itself rather than the work. And the other thing is how often reviews will compare shows. Well, I saw this version in 1986, and you're like, okay, very few other people did. So, well, when the National Theatre did this in a completely different context with a completely, then you're like, okay, and particularly with musicals are not just up for academic review. It's about an emotional response. It's about kind of that connection with that audience. Also, it's such a broad church. I always think when you go out for dinner, it's not, I don't know, sometimes it's like, you absolutely want to go and get a burger. You don't, it's not always the kind of let's go to try this different type of food and cuisine. I just think that the diet's varied, really. So anyway, segue already.
No, it's fine. How many centuries now have we been comparing everything to sliced bread? And ever since then, we have never reached the pinnacle of sliced bread, because we are still comparing things as the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know if this translates. This might be an Australian thing.
No.
Is there nothing else that's greater than sliced bread? Clearly not, because it's sliced already, but that shouldn't surprise you. We are still stuck on sliced bread, so people will compare. What I find sometimes what turns me off a review is when they bring their personal feelings into it.
Yeah, yes.
As in, like, not an educated point of view, like I don't like Westerns, so I hated this musical from the offset. Well, bitch, don't fucking review then, pardon my language. Don't review if you're going to let your personal taste affect that.
I think that's right. And also, particularly in the world of commercial theatre, I mean, you have to kind of learn the hard way. You can't ever do a show that you really don't care about, or you're just doing for kind of, I don't know. Although when it first started, there was one gig I remember I did just take, because I that I was so poor. And I thought, but then anyway, so you learn that's not a good move because you are going to be associated by it. You have to breathe your passion into it. So you have to. However, it doesn't always have to be the sort of work that you would naturally lean to. Also, what is that? I mean, that's the other thing. Yeah. Who am I to kind of say, oh, I only like this particular? Well, why? What are you talking about? That's why actually this conversation is so nice, because actually it's about a little stuff that I now learn. Yeah, I am actually interested in that, whether it's a combination of metal music or WWF wrestling, which was, I've always kind of had an interest in because of the grand stage of it, or frankly, any kind of sport. Yeah. The point being is that I also think people have different tastes, different things. Different types of music, different types of TV shows. You can enjoy an episode of Stranger Things and enjoy an episode of Bluey. It's okay.
Exactly. There's such a dichotomy there. A canyon, there's a void between them. But when you think about it, that still comes together because they're still both.
Yeah, that was exactly it.
Anyways, I've got some questions about Dolly and Pretty Woman, but I'll move them. But firstly, have you had any experience with metal, heavy metal, glam metal, thrash metal, industrial metal?
If I'd said yes, I knew the distinctions between, like, certainly as in when I experienced them, I'd probably be disingenuous. As in, to me, it was like, these were just sounds. And actually now in hindsight, like someone's talked about like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park on the rise of that as new metal. And then I would go, wow. Or, politically raged anarchic thrash, which was way someone sort of described music at the time. I was like, you mean Rage Against the Machine, right? You're like, I mean, that seemed quite specific. But like, I look back particularly about this kind of, I mean, I guess maybe there's a time when you're most impressionable, as a teenager, or is it just because you have more time on your hands? So actually you're able to spend your free time going around to your mate's house and someone says like, play this, and it was actually his older brother's music, which, I mean, again, probably not in the right kind of thing, but it was the first time I was like in northwest of England, just outside of Blackpool, and I was like listening to like a cassette tape, obviously it was then, and with Insane in the Membrane on it, and the Caliphs or the Caliphs, which are kind of weird songs like 369 and things. So like, and then from there was the album Smash by The Offspring, and particularly Come Out and Play. And it was so, I guess, alternative, because in the mainstream, in the high school world, like you've got at that time, Take That and the Spice Girls, and then on the kind of edgier level in the world of the school, like Radiohead doing stuff, and then
Placebo.
Correct. And then into kind of Blur and Oasis and Supergrass and all of that. One has to look back. I always look at 1991. And again, we're not quite in the right level of metal. It was only in later years that all these albums, and I mean them like the Metallica Black Album, Use Your Illusion 1, Use Your Illusion 2, Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nevermind, Pearl Jam 10, they're all released in the same year. Those albums are just, and then 1992, Rage Against the Machine's first album, that was a biggie. And then Ducky follows that, like just huge. Then the first gig I remember going to was The Offspring in Manchester. I was about 13 or 14. I think we were allowed to go on a coach as long as the coach dropped us there and dropped us back. Like, it was pretty wild. And, and of course, the Australian band Silverchair kind of came through. I remember watching them and that album Frog Stomp. The thing that resonates, and it's funny you say about the connection between musical theatre, is that it's so interesting when you look back now and you look at like chart music, and the chart music would always be about like me, this, me, I met this girl, or met this and this and this. This is how, feelings of love. Yeah. And how it's only in later years, again, it didn't strike me as a time as a teenager. I was like, and actually some of those things, Pearl Jam, like they're not just singing about he was a boy, she was a girl, can I make it any more obvious? Like look at In Utero. I mean, what a thing. Like that big drum beat of Scentless Apprentice and this sound. And it was only years later that I was like, what's he singing about? It's like most babies smell like butter. Like what? It's a song based on a fable or an old tale about, well, it's quite dark. I think I can't remember some anyway, you're like, wow. And that actually there's songs that aren't about the kind of just guys and girls or Chris Martin saying he'll fix you. So the storytelling in that, the theatricality in that, then it goes forward, like from that kind of platform. I remember then first listening to like Korn, which we kind of then a bit later. And then the end of the decade, I think that feels like the beginnings of System of a Down and again, those songs like Chop Suey and
Wake Up.
Yeah. And Aerials, which was again, it's like, what's this? Is this like, I mean, just, aerials in the sky, like this is, whoa, where's this guy going? And then I guess beyond that, well, which we got to Slipknot, which was sort of truly I mean, even duality and, kind of the rhythm and the song and the kind of carry of it all. And it went again, just about kind of just completely different subject matter. So I've always kind of like been like, wow, and excited about it. It's just somewhat mind blowing. Underneath all that, though, I do find like clearly there's a lot of people this resonates to because it's actually reflective of experience they've actually had in their own lives. And that makes me kind of reticent. I'm just aware that, like, being honest, like, I'm kind of white middle class kid from England. And it's like, so, I'm kind of looking at it from like, this is wow, wildly kind of out there, and what a sound and what a visceral thing. But yeah, I also recognize that, like, millions of people are resonating with this music and resonating with what it represents and what it says and how they're able to articulate stuff that maybe has happened on a personal level. And actually that articulation is through that sound, visceral and guttural. And if indeed that is because it's actually resonating with someone on an actual level, i.e. this happened, then that's that also kind of makes me feel quite humble about it as well.
And depressed.
Yeah, yes. And it'd be interesting to know what your listeners, what people think about that. How many people are accessing it metaphorically or able to distinguish between the two? I don't know. It's like you're recognizing that this is a sound and a feeling, and maybe it's giving catharsis through that rather than an actual situation.
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned sort of that lyrical content and finding out later in life that all songs are about this sort of thing. I mean, that's a common occurrence, I think, all the time when people suddenly realize what songs are actually about. Like the Escape song is not about enjoying pina coladas, people. It's about like cheating on your partner. But I read a post, someone the other day said, oh, this person has a song on their album titled Necrophilia. And when I read that, I had to laugh because I'm like, oh my God, honey, you should see half the bloody song titles that we come across on this show. Worse than Necrophilia. But yes. Anyways, now you work with a lot of big superstars along the way. One obviously being Caroline Sheen. But what would be in your ultimate, most over-the-top, most self-indulgent rock star writer? I went opulence and unnecessary crap.
Well, probably like some different college US football kind of t-shirts and apparel. I kind of quite like wearing random, various sort of things. Actually, there's a US TV show called Friday Night Lights, which
Kyle Chandler. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And the Dylan Panthers, and I've got various sort of Dylan Panthers like t-shirts and stuff, which I really quite like wearing. The Dylan Panthers, I'd have to go with that. I mean, again, going back to kind of, I'm still quite partial to different random types of boiled sweets as well. Like when you see sort of rhubarb and custard, dandelion and burdock and things like that. Do you not have those? We used to have like kind of traditional sweet shops, as they were, be able to get different random stuff.
Not those flavors. Here it's Australia. We have like molly grubs and honey ants and spiders.
Oh wow. Okay.
No, I'm kidding. That is actual bush tucker, but it's not common. Like they'll be like lemon flavored or strawberry or watermelon or they'd be fruity flavored. They wouldn't be. What were the words you said?
What would I have? Maybe an ice luge to eat biltong off or something. Although that said, actually, if I'm really honest, the big indulgence is I love a prawn. And also, actually, by prawn, I don't really mean prawn. I mean, sometimes they're called crevettes. Sometimes they're called, and again, the US is the place, really.
Call them shrimp.
And obviously they're like, that's a shrimp. And you go, yeah, that's what I'm digging.
Yeah, but okay. You're coming to Australia soon, aren't you?
Do you want something more wild in the rider?
You just sort of said that Americans cook a barbecue type food better than Australians, and I'm worried for your visa coming over here.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, shockingly, and this should change given that we've got Pretty Woman opening in Brisbane soon. So I've not made my debut in Australia yet. So actually, once I do, this will all be rectified, forgiven.
Because you'll have learnt your lesson. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Anyways, we're going to move on now to the metal album. And I chose Sepultura, which I sort of am familiar with, but I picked their album Schizophrenia. So I'm going to quickly read through this, sort of half pros and cons and half review. So it's only 2 pages. Very, very quick, but feel free to jump in and disagree and tell me I am wrong. The first pro, is that the Halloween theme? Con, I'm a little familiar with Beneath the Remains and Arise, so I do know what to expect. The next pro, that makes it an easy listen. But the con is until they give me what I know to expect, so there's no surprises. The pro, but there is hard, heavy thrash metal. The con, it's all grah, grah, rah, 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 rah. The pro, lyrically fascinating, if sometimes very verbose. And the next con is I can't understand half of it anyway. The next pro, is that a steel drum or just some strange technique of banging stuff? The next con is it's was all a little repetitive across tracks without lyric connection becoming clear apart from Hell every 20 seconds. Pro, that'd make a great drinking game. Con, now I'm plastered. Because Sepultura blasts through making themselves known, and for a first effort is a remarkable achievement, even if it's hard to tell one track apart from the other, which means it doesn't quite live up to the album title. I'm only really hearing one voice musically, apart from the Inquisition Symphony and opening overture, which have no gra-gra-gras, with Inquisition highlighting their skills at playing. So I give it 4 stars, because it is a very solid effort, but it wouldn't be a repeat listen for me outside of this show, I don't think, because it was a little bit too repetitious. So there wasn't that point of view apart from the steel drum. Is it a steel drum? I don't know.
It's a great summary, and I was really, really pleased to be introduced to it because, I hadn't come across it, and I'd be unlikely to come across it. So actually listening to it, it did make me, so Pro, I really like the fact that it feels like from an era where you bought an album and you listen to the whole album, where you listen to those 9 tracks, like, which I think were the first 9, and then they kind of added them like in later. But when it was originally released, I think it was just those 9 ending in R.I.P. rest in pain. Oh dear. But those 9 songs felt like they were recorded to be played next to each other, or it felt like that. Here's our album. This is like our album to be out there. I did then immediately Google, the con is that I then immediately Googled when was Master of Puppets actually released, and it was before this, and Justice for All was released just after this. Like, there's pretty heavy influence. Like, you can feel like they've gone, here's Master of Puppets, this is huge. I'm sure there are other songs out there at the time, but that's the one I kind of remember. And there's a lot that like goes, we're kind of going down that track, we're trying to give our version, and then you're right, and then lyrically kind of visceral, but a lot of the time I was Googling what he was actually saying because it wasn't clear.
It's not.
But you're right, halfway through, like Inquisition Symphony, I really like the fact on Amazon Music it says brackets explicit, and you're like, there's no words. What's explicit? Maybe just the sound's explicit. Then you've got like 2.5 tracks before anyone speaks again. So just kind of going, and I would have thought, well, I guess go to a gig and go like, wow, this is interesting. This is interesting, and I'd like to know more. But when you actually then think about like the difference, I guess, with Roots and in later years, like Ratamahatta and things like that, that feels like actually then they've gone, hang on, we probably need our own voice here, and we need to like be our own. And someone calls that like jungle metal, and well, that feels to me, because that's very different than this. Let's just run like a train through these guitar riffs, which is what this kind of is.
And I just want to clarify that being hard to understand wasn't a matter of accent, because they are Brazilian. The words that I could understand were perfectly fine. It was just a matter of it being that it becomes murky. That's I just wanted to clarify that before people are sitting there going, well, of course you can't understand it. It's broken English. Well, a lot of people from foreign countries speak perfectly good English. It is not at all a comment on that. It is purely about the gras. Where they come from. Their heritage very much comes through, I think, in that steel drum. Is it a steel drum? I don't know. I was calling it a marimba for like 3-4 days, and I looked up what a marimba actually is, and it's like a xylophone, and that was not what I was referring to or imagining in my head. It's one of those, like a bowl with like dents in it, and they go all around it.
Yes, you're right. That there was towards the end of Inquisition Symphony, that feels like it does come through. No, you can get it. You can get the idea that there's, I guess sometimes like why was a band get spotted and gets given a record label? You can imagine like someone hearing this group in a club or whatever, and someone going, this is interesting.
That's so funny you say that, Richard, because this album was actually published sight unseen. It was published internationally first without the record company even hearing it, or something like that, or like they'd never seen them play live or something like that. It was, I can't remember exact details, but it was published internationally first and became a hit internationally without the record company really knowing who or what they were about.
Gosh, do you think that's due to like Metallica and Iron Maiden then, or something like that?
Oh yeah.
So basically the kind of someone sits in an office and goes, more of this, let's get more of this, and then they go, we haven't even heard these guys, no, let's go for it.
Yeah, we'll do it overseas. Yeah, that's it. It's like out of town tryouts in America. Oh my god, I'm going to hell for that comment. I am going to hell for that comment because we have a theater audience. Out of town tryouts are wonderful, and they are beneficial to a show. I wasn't throwing shade, I was being shady. Well, I got my foot in my mouth, Richard. I'm so sorry. So I'm going to move it along and do our sequel. Is there anything else you want to throw in about the album? What would you give it out of 5 stars?
Yeah, I'd give it 3.5, maybe 3. Only cause I really enjoyed listening to it. But you are right. It's like it's the beginning of something, and
Yeah.
you kind of go, "This is a big train."
And look, and they drive that train perfectly well, absolutely competently. Their skills are incredible, and it showcases that. And this is their first album, and it was published sight unseen, and it's this good.
Yes, you're right.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't suck at all. Some of the songs are repetitious, yes, and some of the lyrics, I'm sure they sort of worked on that over the years and refined them. But to come out of the park with this album, I thought that's a 4-star for me.
I mean, I don't know. I can't remember whether The Smash was the Offspring's first album or, Rage Against the Machine debut album. Did Green Day have Kaplunk? Was that? Anyway, I can't remember. It's wrong to compare. I'm doing that thing that I just said, like a critic. What a shocker. I'm just saying, well, when I first heard Green Day's album, I was like, that's what I've just said we shouldn't do. You should treat it on its own merits. And you're right. I had a great time listening to it.
You are sliced breading it. That's what you were doing.
Yep.
So, anyways, it looks like. Oh no, that's the wrong segue. That's the metal segue. Musical segue. Well, yeah, it looks like Sepultura was gra 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 gra. So we'll be back after this.
Hello there, my name is Caroline Sheen, and I've just started an exciting new podcast called Talk Musicals to Me, where I'll be sitting down with some of the biggest names and industry players in musical theatre, including Olivier and Tony Award winners, West End and Broadway icons, and celebrated composers, as they discuss the musicals that have resonated most with them, both professionally and personally, sharing their most cherished musical memories. Join me on this journey through the fantastic musical theatre world and the people who inhabit it. And here is an exclusive sneak peek. Our guest today is the incredible Adam Gettle, Tony Award-winning composer-lyricist of wonderful musicals, The Light in the Piazza, Floyd Collins, Myths and Hymns, and last year, Days of Wine and Roses. I had the absolute pleasure to work with Adam on The Light in the Piazza when it had its European premiere in Leicester Curve back in 2009, I think. And it is an absolute joy and honour to have you here. Hello, Adam.
Hello, my dear. What fun, and thanks for having me.
I'm absolutely thrilled. And we are going to crack on with the next few questions, Adam, if that's okay.
Wonderful.
Which musical do you think should be compulsory in schools for kids to take part in, and in whatever capacity, not necessarily on stage?
I would avoid anything compulsory when it comes to the art form that you and I love, because that's a sure way to at least postpone a person's loving it,
That's true. That's true.
I think the thing that I would want young people to take away from participating in a musical when they're young or having seen one is when a musical is good, it's a good musical to begin with. And then when it's lifted up onto the stage, well, it can give you a feeling you don't get from anything else. It's something to do with the sort of deeply sort of profound molecular sort of changes that happen. There's something gets pushed around inside of us and reconfigured with a great score and a great book, and decent direction that takes us through a story in that way where we can ensconce ourselves completely and take the proscenium and sort of pull it around our heads and live in the story. To me, that's what we want them to take away with them, that such a thing is possible. Of course, it's also possible with movies in a slightly different way. But to cite a specific show, I would want the score to be a really exciting score for whatever young person. And if it's Hamilton, that's great, Also, and my shows generally don't always fall into this because sometimes they're a bit too sort of involved in terms of the vocal lines and stuff. But, I want people to, especially young people, have silver in their pocket when they leave a theater or they leave the experience. They have melodies jangling around, lines that have always struck them very personally that they've kept with them, like in a locket,
This will lead on to this next question, actually. My husband actually remembers you talking about silver in your pocket. He went, I wonder if he'll say that, because it was such a great thing to say. And it's actually really useful for the next question, because is there a musical that you feel you walked out of with the most silver in your pocket, feeling changed or altered? Or did you feel like you'd live your life in a slightly different way after seeing it,
Oh, well, certainly Sweeney Todd. And I was 14, so I was already like nearly analyzing stuff. And the silver I had was not just that momentous and unforgettable score, but also the milieu, the vocabulary physically that Hal came up with his wonderful designer, but also just the way that the form was used, using music to really delineate character and push the story forward. So that would be a huge one. But well before that, Turn of the Screw by Britain, really moved by. I was in that, and it's hard for me to choose, what's the most silver in the pocket, but I have so much from Fiddler and so much from West Side and shows that are less known. I just we just carried around. We have our sort of unnamed kind of tacit Rolodex, in our minds and in our hearts, and also the ache in our heart and in our throat to do well in the form, to use it at that level, to get to that level with it, and that's also a kind of, it's an energy cell,
Yeah. You talk about Fiddler there. I think that the opening number of that show is utterly brilliant. And the way it introduces character, culture, religion, tradition.
Absolutely, 100%. And even before the opening number, I think it's Joe Stein. Is that who?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
But anyway, the very first monologue, which begins the show before the number.
Yes.
It's one of the best things ever written in the theater because it perfectly lifts the story up for us to participate in. It's a fabulous sort of spiritual roadmap as well as narrative.
I love that. So the silver in your pocket coming out, especially with ticket prices these days. If you come out with something that you've learned along the way, some kind of bonus.
You better come out with something.
Exactly.
We're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined by past Talk Musicals to Me guest, Richard Darbourne. Now, you did work on the Olympics with the Olympic medals, doing the Olympic medal ceremonies, which if you want to hear that story, go listen to Richard's episode of Talk Musicals to Me with Caroline Sheen, produced by me for the Bloop Network. Anyways, if you were to compete in an artistic Olympics, an art Olympics, what would be the events that you watch or that you want to watch people compete at? And what events would you compete at and win gold?
Well, I guess the thing I'd like to watch is the 1 or 2 person musical delivery where someone tackles the one person one day more, for example. 2 person you can get quite further with. So actually, I think you could make it a doubles. You can actually make it a singles and a doubles, actually, in the battle kind of world. So you're able to kind of take, I'm going to do, maybe there's probably a time limit. You've got maybe less than 5 minutes. You can either deliver the whole musical or you can deliver a section. Maybe, I don't know what the judges would be happy with. And you could get West End Broadway international performers essentially to submit HMS Pinafore. I say that only because that's the one that Kelsey Grammer does in The Simpsons.
I only just got this yesterday. It is Sideshow Bob in his HMS Pinafore as a Funko Pop.
Wow.
I got that from my nephew, but I have the figurine. I have the actual figurine of it.
That one is because, I had a great pleasure working with different people. And when Kelsey Grammer agreed to do Big Fish, it was all like, wow, and it was all about Frasier. For me, it was like Sideshow Bob. And that episode, that Cape Fear episode, that's the kind of denouement of it, is that he's going to sing a one-person version of HMS Pinafore, having smacked himself in the face with a rake a number of times.
Yes. That episode taught me everything I need to know about comedy, about taking the joke too far, because it becomes stale. There's a point where that joke becomes stale, the rakes in the face.
Yeah.
But the longer it goes on, the funnier it becomes. And so that's a whole masterclass in comedy.
I can't believe you've just brought that out. That is absolutely unbelievable.
I know, because of all the things you happened to mention. Sorry, I got so excited.
As a riff on it, what a great Olympic event this is. Open to interpretation. So essentially you can do, you could do a 4-minute version of Guys and Dolls and this happened, but also someone, maybe you could do the same thing, but someone just offers a much better creative interpretation of how you kind of get the whole thing out there that actually, I guess it's like gym mat, you're going to get marked on delivery, but also creativity and get the combined score.
Wouldn't this be an amazing event to have? We need millions and millions and millions of dollars for this, obviously, but wouldn't this be amazing?
I don't know whether you do. You could just put it out there for different companies in the West End and Broadway to sort of basically, practice your mashup, 5 minutes, pick a thing. You're essentially creating an a cappella like Bella's kind of pitch perfect sort of world, but essentially you're going, post it online. This is we've decided to do Avenue Q and this is, but you've got to do it, as I said, I think it's a singles or a doubles event, I think.
Yeah, I would do Rent solo. myself.
Would I win gold in it? No, probably not. I don't know. I'd be outdone. I'd give the end of Big Fish a go. You know, what's next? I wouldn't really. I wouldn't win gold.
What about schmoozing on the golf course? You're a producer.
No, I was gonna say no. I mean, producing the after event. I think that would be. I could get get the medal. It's just basically say, right, this is what we're going to do. All these people from around the world, etc. Let's bring us together a series of like little parties, big event, etc. I could produce that bit.
Yeah, awesome. Anyway, star quality. How do you define it, and who has more, me or Caroline?
You can't define it. I think you just have it, which, clearly do. I mean, it is interesting that there's lots of different people, but most of the people who are really at the top of their game, they wear it so easily. Like, I guess there's a constant desire that they're not done.
Yeah.
Some of the most amazing actors, when I first started out, it was Michael Gambon and Eileen Atkins. Trevor Nunn, who kind of did it with them as well, with this it's a 70-seat theatre to a 200-seat theatre off Broadway. I mean, I guess they're at the point in their careers where they can kind of enjoy that, but boy, did they. And just really, really just enjoyed the detail of it. It wasn't about status. It wasn't about kind of, is this the right move for me at this point? It was just about like the work. I didn't work that. Adam Spears worked more closely with Eddie Redmayne on Cabaret, but I think it's the same thing. It's just it's the detail. It's the gentleness with which they wear the kind of the fact that they're really at the top of work where they are. And more than anyone is Ian McKellen, who we've managed to work with 4 times now. Whether we did Mother Goose or Player Kings, but always a big sense of what's next. And really just interested in their craft, in the community they're in. They lead from the top. It's about kind of leading by example with their company members, every aspect of it. That's the defining feature, is that actually they just wear it so well, and that shows great leadership. So I suppose that's the thing.
Yeah, awesome. There's one more quick musical question before we move on to the musical. Now, if you could commission a sequel to a classic musical, so let's say pre-1980s, what characters would you want to hear from again?
Wow.
Because I have a theory that Annie hooked up with one of the Newsies.
Well, yeah, correct. So maybe they're even like, that'd be the Shrek of it, wouldn't it? When you go to like Once Upon a Time, they're all there. So everyone's kind of sort of residing like
a shared universe.
Well, in modern times, you'd love to kind of, you feel like Eliza Doolittle probably sort of told her, probably surpassed Higgins by the, rather than this kind of, maybe she quite quickly kind of thought, are you all that?
Oh, she was a new Eva Peron.
Oh, what was she?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh wait, sorry. I was trying to work out is that the same actor? Oh yeah. Exactly.
The characters from Greece went to war and half of them got killed because Vietnam happened, or Korea.
Oh my goodness.
Well, Korea happened in the 50s. That was 1950 to 1953. Look at me having watched 100 episodes of MASH in the past few weeks.
Yeah, Kaneki goes to Vietnam and then has a child who ends up in Beverly Hills 90210 or something. Yes.
Miss Saigon. Oh my God, Kaneki is John from Miss Saigon. Is it John from Miss Saigon? Chris. It's a generic name either way. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. That's fun.
Yeah, so what one would you commission?
Oh, classic. I think there's a sequel to Avenue Q, but that's not classic.
I think there's a new adventure. The type of sequel that I would like to see is a sequel that is a new adventure, not the same thing rehashed again.
Yes.
I could see that from Avenue Q, but
yes.
And it would have to be something totally different, not a street-based, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, they would all move to different areas, but they'd be right. Would they reconvene? I mean, a new adventure of Calamity Jane, I think, could be good.
Yeah.
That could be where I would go.
Make it a bit darker, less chipper. Gritty.
Yeah, exactly. Make it sort of, get Taylor Sheridan to kind of be a creative consultant on it. So it's sort of Calamity Jane, but a bit 1883, a bit like we're gonna relay what's happening now. Come on, Wild Bill, sort this out.
I can already imagine the cleanup bill after that. Bloodfest.
Yeah.
He was one that did the sequel to Titus Androgynous. So was it called Dave or Bob or something? That was the sequel to Titus Androgynous. It was like the cleanup of all the dead bodies. That was the play. It was on Broadway. What was that called?
I don't know this.
It was like called Dave or something, like the sequel. And it was Taylor Sheridan. I swear it was Taylor Sheridan. Because I'm not too, cut this out. I'm not too familiar with his work. But I believe this.
When you say Dave, I always think Kevin Kline as the American president.
That's right. Gary, a sequel to Titus Andronicus. I knew it was a name. Taylor Mack, I'm thinking of. I'm sorry, Taylor Sheridan.
Oh.
Names. I'm pumped up on antihistamines at the moment, people.
Yeah, I was thinking Taylor Sheridan's work on Broadway would be very good. In terms of people you want to meet, man, I just think because Sicario is this other movie, the Emily Blunt one. Started watching Yellowstone and then I was like, I don't know, can I get into this? And then I watched 1883 and you're like, oh wow, this it's just like you've like Marvel franchised, and it's just extraordinary. The kind of actually where you think these things go. And I think he did Tulsa King as well. So I mean, I think there's like a huge amount of work that's actually kind of come out of this.
That's what happens when you have one hit. The offers start rolling in.
It can snowball from there.
That's it. I do actually really want to see the Grease characters at war. I know we've got Grease 2 and I love Grease 2 and I will fight till the death.
Taking these characters and then having them in a completely new different setting.
What happened next?
Yeah. So like The Thin Red Line or something, that movie.
Yeah, I don't need sequels to be the same thing over and over again. It doesn't thrill me to see the same moments replicated
Yes.
in a sequel, especially not if it's 30 years later and we've just spent 30 years watching that one film over and over and over and over again. We do want to see that what happens next. I could be speaking just for myself. Anyway, speaking to something that doesn't have a sequel, we're going to move on to the musical, and we're going to do The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which you won as a producer for Best Musical, and I watched the ceremony recently, and I was like, oh, I know that guy. Look at him standing back there, and he got named. I'm like, oh, that's Richard. I know him. But the best thing is that we actually got to interview, well, Caroline got to interview you, 2 days after you won?
Yeah.
We were so happy because your face was red as anything because you were so happy and so proud and so rapt, and we were so happy for you. Like we were buzzing for you. So congratulations again.
Tomatoed.
Yeah, you did. Don't worry, it happens all the time.
No, I'm always like that. It's always I'm always excited, and
Yeah.
but it was very oh my gosh, it still is. It's nice to reflect on it because actually it was just, I remember saying to the whole company, the whole thing, I said, we would have been very proud anyway, by the way. And I really, really mean that. I do think this kind of third party adjudication system is like to give validation to it all. However, it does exist in our industry, and to actually go through it and to kind of, I don't know, have the endeavor recognized, like, because it was like that. It was like, I think I said at the time, it was like landing a helicopter onto a postage stamp. And by that, you mean, like, I saw Jethro's work in 2019, and it's like, what do you do? It was a cast of 5 and you kind of breathe energy into it with them to expand it and to shepherd that, and then be aware of the other things that we do commercially that means we can bring an investor pool on, but also speaks to that investor pool, speaks to that finance group in actually a way that kind of makes sense. Strategically kind of pick, we've got a number of Americans with us because that was always the desire to kind of, to see if there's a life beyond. In order for it to work, it's got to become a global thing. And this is very much like one step on the way to that. And then there's the work itself. So like the first thing is like transitioning it into the 250 seat space, where to land it. There's a number of like maybes along the way. We try with other theaters and stuff, and then we get back there, and then for it to work, and then for it to be seen, recognized as a work in progress, but as a diamond in the rough, which could have squashed it in 2023, I think. Yeah. And then because of the other 10 years of producing other stuff and building other stuff, we're in a position to get it into the West End because ATG, that was the theatre we pitched for. That's the kind of theatre of that size that they can give and take a risk on. For that then to happen, and then for that then to go in there and everyone to come on the journey with, and to find the actors to do it, and John and Chloe kind of lead it, and everyone else, Philippa Hogg is just, all these people, and the reward of actually that creative journey and having that creative input, and then being able to, through previews, keep everyone fit and healthy, and then just breathe and go nudge it and nudge it and nudge it and say, what about this, what about this, what about this, and for it to land like it has, and for the industry to then kind of take a step back and go, gosh, this is just, particularly because the industry recognizes like what it is, all the steps along the way, and for actually all the cogs to fit together into this whole, and then for all of that to be culminated on that stage on that Sunday night in the Albert Hall, and for me to to have that kind of personal moment within that, absolutely extraordinary. It's really been great.
It was wonderful. Not only that, what you say, but the industry also recognizes cynicism, and when it comes to musicals that are based on familiar titles, there's an instant cynicism nowadays because people have been burnt time to even producers and creatives have been burnt. Didn't go well for them. Well, it didn't get well received, so there's that instant cynicism. So welcome to Thrash and Treasure. Now I'm going to review it.
Oh, great.
I'm sorry. Thank you for coming on my show, Richard. It's been a real honor meeting you. Anyways, when I first decided to unbutton The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, it was with vague memories of Brad Pitt. No. Wait, where was I? Anyways, I unlocked the case on Spotify and was welcomed with Ragtai U Tree, which we're going to pretend means once upon a time, in Simru, which will also pretend means Welsh. Anyways, I don't actually know if this is Wales or Ireland. Either way, I'm going to hell. So that's all, folks. After quick narration, we world build with a spring in our step until the wet naked baker showed up with his unsliced baguette. And without warning, that spring in our step is a sweaty summer around weak knees. Great. Now everybody's pregnant. The western winds blow the kraken, and suddenly it's the bi-curious case of Benjamin Button. But I digress. Atmospherically, we're transported to Wales or Ireland with a folky sound that brightens up as more actor-singer musos join the story, and giving us a life-affirming journey that left this crab pickled upon each listen. Well, apart from the one earworm, but it's only a matter of time before another catchy ditty sweeps in, taking us with them. Will you go home to be cast to the sea? Shipping out tomorrow? The tide is coming in. Matter of time too. Who named these tracks in order? Me? The tide is coming in, rolling away a glass bottle. I do feel at home with this fantastical score, and I don't want to spoil the story because that would be backwards, but it's as timeless as Brad Pitt. And just like Brad Pitt, the story's inspiration, it's sometimes masculine, sometimes soft and touching, always homely, and clearly given a certain energy from its multifaceted cast. But is it the greatest thing since cut baguettes? Comparisons to Come From Away are near, far, wherever they are, and the bittersweet tone doesn't help that case. But unlike Come From Away, when you hear they turned Brad Pitt into a musical, it doesn't incite that initial dread factor that it does hearing they made a 9/11 musical. So on that level, it inches out its Canadian cousin by the tip of Baker's baguette. I'm sorry. 5 stars. I absolutely love this because it's so atmospheric and it goes through so many emotions. There's peaks and valleys, but it's very masculine and it's very soft. It's very feminine at the same time. And it's a familiar story, so I didn't really need to think too much in terms of what's going on. But the album completely sells it and tells what's going on. And I don't remember that much sex at the start of it.
Well, no, there's certainly, firstly, it's nice that I'm pleased that it's kind of resonated because, it has landed, but it's really landed with people who've actually seen it in context. That I think is one of the hardest challenges about a new piece of work, and particularly a new piece of work like this, and also something that's connected to with references to the movie and the inspirations are really the short story and the concept, really, rather than the movie. And certainly once you see it, other than the concept, there's not actually another connection with the movie. And actually, nicely now, it's got the ability to be its own thing. Yeah. And I think that's what's kind of pleasing about where we are currently with it, is that, potentially 5 to 10 years from now, it'll just be, that musical. So that's good. But yes, certainly the opening number, that it's the one bit where people still have to get their ear in and they're like, who's this? Who's this? Who's this? And it all kind of plays itself out. The villagers, and actually they all have their own journey that they jump in here and here and here and there. And it's very rewarding right at the end, the way that kind of it all just links itself up in this message of life being precious, don't waste a minute, which they all kind of share. But yes, also there's a bit of raunch in there as well.
Yeah. I had fun with writing that review. I'm so sorry.
It's a lovely review. And it's thrilling to be mentioned in the same breath ever as Come From Away. But it is interesting. There are a couple of reference points to that.
Yeah, that was undeniable. I'm sorry. That is a critique.
Yeah, correct.
And it's not that they're the same sound, like the same notes or the same song. It's that vibe, it's the atmosphere, and it's the instruments.
Yes, and the generosity of storytelling. I think that's the other thing as well, is that I think in the way it's kind of structured is this, that it's kind of, the company are in character, but they're also narrators. They're also kind of, and then this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and I was going to go down here, and and certainly that Welcome to the Rock is like, again, well, and on that day, and on that day, and on that day, and that's very much in the world of Button as well. And we've even had people coming back, and when they've come back, and I said, oh gosh, how nice to see you. He goes, well, it's May the 3rd, and you go, what's? Oh, I made that date up, but they've clocked in the show. There's specific things that happen on specific days, and you're like, ooh, wow, that's amazing. And they say, well, on May the 3rd, that's where he met Lowen, and you're like, wow, yeah, I hadn't made that connection. Well, this fan base does. It's nice how much it resonates with people.
Yeah. Now, is it Ireland or Wales?
It's neither.
Oh my God, I'm a fool.
It's on the Cornish coast. So
Ah.
it's the southwest coast of England in the atmospheric, gorgeous, it's Cornwall. There's lots of references, places like Newlyn, and I think even to kind of British audiences, these aren't kind of household names, these towns, and which gives it an air of fairy tale land, essentially, and this kind of terrific point and all these things. You get the idea that the Cornish coast is certainly is a pretty strong theme throughout the whole thing.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, see, I've never been to England. My dad was born there, though, but he moved away when he was like 8. And the opening track, what does that mean?
Oh gosh, I wish.
Ragtime,
I should know.
your tree. I'm presuming it's Once Upon a Time.
It's Cornish.
It's Cornish. Oh, okay. I thought it was Welsh. I was going to ask Caroline. I'm so glad I didn't. I would have looked like a fucking idiot.
I think it's With You I'm Home.
Oh, okay.
But that's a very good point. Amazing, isn't it? 6 years in, and you've asked me what it means. I've told you I don't really know.
Fine, that's fine. I asked Lonnie Price what happened to the girl at the start of Merrily. You know, he was only in the original Broadway cast.
Yeah.
And like the whole acid in the eye, which was put in Maria's production. And I asked him, is she blind after that or does she sue? And he's like, you know what? I've never thought about it.
Never thought about it.
Like, how have you never thought about it? It was literally, I could not get off that one moment. And so when we sat down with Maria Friedman, the first chance I got, I'm like, Maria, I'm so sorry, but what happened to that girl at the start? And she totally got it. She totally got it.
That's brilliant. We have the pleasure of directing Lonnie Price's production of West Side Story, which I think played at Sydney Opera House, I think, a couple of years ago. And fingers crossed, we'd love to take it back. So if anyone's listening, he's great, and that's an amazing version of that show, his production.
I would love to see anything directed by any of the guests I've had on this bloody show. Goodness gracious me.
Well, fingers crossed. You know, we've got grand hopes for Benjamin Button all over this. Nothing we can say nothing right now, but there's lots of lovely conversations going on. We're hopeful that there's actually lots of people who create, program, run theatres, all of whom have seen it or heard about it. And it's what's nice is that they've immediately gone, this is for us. That was kind of the big thing as well. That's a big part of it, is that, you know, my daughter's 7, and, you know, whether you're 7 or 77, it resonates. Male, female, wherever you're from, whatever culture, whatever thing is, it's this universal story of making you want to love and hug those you love even tighter.
Yeah, bittersweet. Like, for the dad to finally see his son playing at 104, like, that, as sweet as that is, it's also really sad. Like, oh, it's very bittersweet.
Very, very much. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say the overarching, it is uplifting and epic. I mean, it's, you know, it's big in theme, but you're right. Within that, there is the full spectrum.
Very much so. Like, not to bring up that comparison again, like Come From Away has that sort of hardness that but doesn't last much beyond that opening song. So that masculinity or that sort of rugged islandness doesn't really translate through that whole show, whereas that ruggedness translates through this whole show. So I thought there were sort of moments along the way that sort of, it felt like maybe they learnt the lessons that Come From Away they learnt lessons from that, you know what I mean, in terms of keeping that flow or that sort of mix going along the way. Yeah,
you should reach out to Darren Clark, who composed the score, because it'd be interesting to get because he's a gorgeous guy, and also he's from New Zealand, and it'd be interesting to ask, like, what, because I think that's a good question, like, you know, will the evolution, it's evolved a lot over its life. But yeah, what active associations to other work would he ascribe to, without breaching any copyright, of course? That's such a fun line, but we all know, like, it's plain and simply artists are inspired by other artists. Yeah, what else where did the influences come from? Because I imagine must all be within us all. Exactly. So anyways, no, I really do like it. I thought the standouts were Rolling Away and Will You Go. I thought just that they were the most fun songs. Yeah. But yeah, it looks like Benjamin's no longer curious. Oops. So we'll be back after this. G'day listeners, Aaron here. While we've been off on hiatus, I haven't actually been taking a break. I've released a new book lately, so I thought I should probably plug it in this commercial break. So if you yourself or anyone you know is a budding artist or just likes to doodle when they're on the phone, I've actually released a book that's filled with 150 drawing activities, but also it has 150 drawing challenges to go along with it. So it's 160 pages and 300 drawing challenges all up. So it's just a fun little book that I decided to put together and put online for people to buy. And it's been tested out, and the people who tested it out said it was lots of fun. So if you're listening to this and want to help support our network, please go to www.thetonistantales.com/bookstore. Now, if you look at the link below, you'll see a link to that, and you can use the code TNT20 to get 20% off. So that's pretty awesome. So I'd really appreciate it if you could help our network stay afloat and buy my latest book, which I haven't even mentioned the name. It is called
art for my sake, and it is all about drawing and doodling and being challenged along the way. So, yes. Anyways, back to the episode. And we're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron. I'm flying solo again, and I'm joined by Richard Darbourne, producer extraordinaire, or impresario, I believe is the correct term. Now, going from an impresario to what is something that everybody else does perfectly well that you're terrible at?
Peeling an egg.
Really? Like a hard-boiled egg?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know why. There's like a little inner skin or something. Some people just kind of can peel an egg. It's a mess. Even my daughters, they're not yet 5. They sort of look at me like, going, you're making this much harder than it needs to be. And I think that's with good cause. So my egg work has, well, I mean, I do feel, it's a good partnership at home. I do cooking and the kids sorting, but certainly in terms of fixing stuff, my wife absolutely surpasses me significantly.
You're not good with a tool belt?
I'm afraid not, no. So, there's plenty like that. But, all of that is maybe sort of workable. But the egg is the painful kind of thing, I have to kind of really tiny bits of shell. Yeah, it's hard yards.
That's why we asked this question. But for me, it's wearing anything that's woolen, or if I just give the dog a couple of scratches, I'll then go turn the tap on and put my hand under it, and I literally electrocute myself with the water. I feel the zap. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. This is something stupid about me that I just can't wear anything woolen. So, which I do all the time. I'm literally wearing woolen.
Oh yeah, generally, wearing that's the other wearing weight appropriate clothing, but depending on the weather. For example, I would kind of sort of say, this is the rig I've got on today. It's like, yeah, but it's hot outside. It's like, even now, to be honest, actually, I'm wearing quite a thick shirt, but I was just like, this is the shirt I'm going to wear, regardless. It was like, well, maybe you should see what the weather's like outside. Nah, it's got to deal with me rather than the other way around.
Yeah. Whereas I live in Melbourne, so it's like, if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. Anyways, okay, so the big topic for every theatre industry is bums on seats, really.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you'd allow me to open up a discussion about this, how we get people back in the theatre. There are productions running in Australia at the moment that quite frankly should be selling out. They should not be running at 60-70%.
Yeah.
Because of the names, because of the quality of the show, because of even just the sets and the grandeur of it. Dear Evan Hansen failed here. Hadestown failed here. Beetlejuice is currently selling at 67% on a Friday night. What's going wrong? What is not connecting with audiences? Because I have my theories. What's yours?
Well, firstly, it's always hard to hear. Certainly, and maybe was ever thus, but it feels more and more like the West End, particularly, and Broadway is an event market. It's eventy stuff, i.e. it's a kind of, whether it's Evita now at the Palladium, and also well played. I'm all for kind of taking theatre to as many people as possible. And if that means that actually there's a kind of walk out on the balcony and thousands of people gather and that becomes a talking point, then I don't think that's a bad thing. But it does mean you're kind of the diet of we just go and enjoy the musical for the musical's sake. Yeah. Same, it's kind of very hard to see why stuff catches fire and stuff doesn't. But I guess also, so certainly again in the UK, there are kind of big movie adaptation brands that are landing. So I guess what that means is that either aside from the event, it's real confidence of a night out and a big night out too. Pretty Woman's a really good example. We've done it in the UK and it's brilliant that it's opening in Brisbane soon, and it's awesome. Unlike Benjamin Button, where you have to kind of unpack what is this, you do not with The Devil Wears Prada or Pretty Woman the Musical or Burlesque the Musical, which is playing in London as well. And again, it's only doing a short run, but it's doing big business.
Starring past guest Orphe.
Oh, great. Yes, of course. Great. Todrick Hall's awesome as well. So but there's something about that. It's conventionally, they break the fourth wall down and things like that. There's also a world where quite anarchically audiences are generally mainstream audiences are great. So I'm kind of veering off point. But so I think confidence in what people are getting. I think the reality is that maybe audiences that would go to 2 or 3 things in a year are going to one thing, and therefore maybe they're spending a bit more while they're there, or they're making a big event of it, but their frequency is less. And I always think the thing that gets thrown at it, and maybe people, listeners are when are you going to mention ticket price? And it's well,
I've got that written down. Don't worry, folks.
I do accept that the big headliner is that tickets skew hard. Basically, the average ticket price in the West End is still 56 quid. You can still now midweek go and, you can see Cabaret and Benjamin Button for less than £50. You can get good seats. Now, can you get them for 25, 15? Sometimes you can, but no, but the reality is I think the entry point of 30 to 35 pounds, you have to look at what these things actually cost. Like,
yeah,
unfortunately, there is a reality that that's about the right entry point in terms of what they actually cost to put it on. Obviously, someone then goes, yeah, well, hang on, though, it's skewing high to 250 quid or beyond. Now, I also recognize that tends to be when people look at the inventory. So if you look at, if you want to go to something with 2 days notice on a Saturday night, you're going to see a massive price. I get that. So anyway, I don't want to sit here and defend too much because I know certain things, but prices on Broadway, there's a lot of crazy pricing. But also when we've done stuff like when we did Paul Mescal and did Streetcar Named Desire, and they wanted to put a free performance on all those deliberately Jamie Lloyd stuff with James McAvoy, who makes you £15 tickets. No one wants to write about that, actually. Like, actually, when there have been accessible pricing, it's a stronger news story that gets much more coverage about highlighting the high prices rather than actually the variety of prices that do exist in Australia too. So I'm not sure that price being the sole reason why numbers are down. If it is, then as an industry and as a media, we need to kind of manage that messaging better, because I don't think it's completely accurate just to say that theatre's overpriced.
What I think it is personally, like I've paid over $200 for tickets many, many times, right? And so when I pay, say, $215 to go see the Book of Mormon, what I'm getting on stage looks like $215 worth of a seat. However, to pay $215 for Come From Away did not feel good. That's really where I think the issue for a lot of people is that they want to see what we're paying on the stage. And so there are so many productions that we can get onto video screens as well, whether or not they're cheaper to run or not, but people are seeing that cinema experience for a theatre price. So there'll be a disconnected problem there. But I don't agree that your shows should not be priced at the same as an amateur theatre production. Amateur theatre should be priced at amateur theatre. Professional productions should be priced at professional productions. That's what separates them apart. One is running at for a profit and one is running not for profit, just to keep the lights on, basically, at the end of the day. So
not even running for profit. They're just running with overheads to satisfy. I mean, honestly, I think that's the reality. They're just trying to not lose money rather than make money. And I think that's largely true. There's an ecosystem of professional people who want to be employed right the way through. Those labor costs are higher than they've ever been. The cost of moving stuff around, the cost of touring it around, the cost of also, understandably, I think potentially pre-pandemic and otherwise, we've kind of been in a world where people's working patterns were really heavy. It was kind of, and actually, so, there's a lot of change. But theatre is an expensive thing.
Like I say, I'm happy to pay if I know like what I'm getting is worth that, because sometimes I've paid more than what I could afford because, I'm an independent podcast producer, really, and I've walked away sort of feeling like things were really skimped on, even if it was just they didn't use half the light, they kept most of the stage in darkness, or the orchestra takes up most of the stage. I'm paying over $200 to see it. But if you're going to put that on the stage, price it at that. Like something like Hair gets priced cheaply, not just because it's old, but because there's not much there. So the tickets are always cheap. As I say, I'm happy to pay that $200 if I know what I'm getting is that. And I think most people are the same. So when they go on about ticket prices, I think that's more so what they're hinting at. Look, it becomes a gamble. But what I think the problem is, okay, here in Australia, there's a couple of problems. We don't have late night talk shows anymore. We don't have talk shows. We don't have these shows for the performers to go on at night and perform a number or whatever. So we don't have them anymore. We do have the breakfast shows, but nobody watches them. They don't have any respect in Australia. So those interviews really don't go anywhere. So there's an exposure issue in terms of that. We used to, and I've got to tread very, very lightly here. We used to create superstars in Australian theatre. Marina Pryor, Simon Burke, Caroline O'Connor, superstars. These were names that became stars for being stage stars. And we're not seeing that as much anymore because we don't have that push on TV. Like we've got a few quiz shows, and so people will pop up as a 2-minute guest spot on a quiz show, which has nothing to do with musical theatre. But I think the big problem worldwide, and I say this again with all the respect, when was the last time, Richard, you heard a musical had a song that made its way onto the radio, that made its way into the zeitgeist in the same way that Memory did, in the same way that On the Street Where She Lived did, in the same way all those classic songs from way back then became standards on the radio, became part of the pop culture zeitgeist. And do you know what that did? It sold tickets, because people had to go see that wonderful song on the stage and hear it again in the encore, of course. Obviously, that sold more tickets than anything, more tickets than word of mouth, more tickets than social media, more tickets than any bus posters that you could have. Everybody heard those songs, and it became a matter of, oh, what's that song? Oh, it's from this musical. Oh, well, when it comes to town, we got to go see it. And people did. And that's why those musicals became such classics, because they had, at least, even if it was just one hit song that made its way onto the radio, people were sat in that theater waiting for that one hit song. And we're just not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Producing amazing musicals. Do not get me wrong. I'm not denigrating what creatives are doing. Amazing musicals, but there is no standalone track that can be sung and performed anywhere. So... sorry.
I think certainly what you said about talk shows as well, I think it's really relevant. Penetrating the mainstream market, that is what a movie adaptation title can do.
Yep.
So if it's called Back to the Future the musical, Pretty Woman the musical, it just resonates. You don't need to explain it any further. So why is that resonating? So actually, ways you hear something else, you go, oh, I need to know more about this. So that's your first touch point. Maybe you see a poster, but that doesn't make you it doesn't get you over the line. But then maybe if you then watch the chat show in the evening and you go, oh, it's that guy, and then they're talking about that show, then there's two touch points in a way. So it's kind of helping your journey. Then, as you say, and it's interesting to note it's not worked in the same well, Dear Evan Hansen, because here, I think you're asking, like, when was the last time? Waving Through a Window, now, it certainly hasn't broke. It's not like Radio 1 will play it. But you get a number of people, like, I remember my brother's kids are kind of going to a dance class on a Saturday, or kind of like playing, learning a routine or a jazz routine, and what song's in the background, what song are they doing it to? It's Waving Through a Window. So that then connects them. So actually, the tour of Evan Hansen's done really well in the UK. And I think because of these standalone tracks from the greatest writers, baaack and Paul, then writing these numbers, and they go like, You Will Be Found. Interestingly, You Will Be Found is like this kind of anthem that's still in the ether, which it's not actually what it's written. That's not the context of what in the show. It's actually it's a much harder moment. So anyway, so that is a big thing, as you say, kind of championing the artists who deliver it. And I think that's right. America still seems stronger at breaking star talent because they're in a musical. By the way, if there's a child's voice you can hear right now, that's probably my 4-year-old, which means the clock's ticking. Anyway, but where you would go, oh, it's starring XYZ, and actually that's people that has a drive itself. I would agree. We don't really have that in the UK either. And there we go.
We need hit songs. There's a whole bunch of questions that I could have asked, but no, I'm so thrilled. I'm going to have you back on again in the future, though.
Well, I was going to say, as we pretty much go to Brisbane and then Sydney and beyond, and it's going to be so exciting. So,
do you need a hot date for opening night? No? Oh, okay.
If I'm there, you're with me. That's great.
Oh, wonderful.
But happy to come back and continue the metal musical journey.
Yes, and more of this discussion, because I think we need to get to the bottom of where this disconnect is. Even if it's not across the board, it's definitely here in Australia, that there is something that when you look at 20, 30 years ago, people knew Marina Pryor's name. Now the common person doesn't know our theatre stars, and there's just no breakout song. And it's all to do with context, because a lot of the songs, whilst amazing, are all story-driven. They're all story-driven, so you can't really take them out. So songwriters, we want to hear some standalone songs in your musicals and get them on the radio. Even though no one listens to the radio anymore, what's the point?
Well, all these things true. I think it's how many people are tuning into certain things as well. There's so many different outlets now.
That's it. But yeah, anyways, I'll let you go. You got kids and a family, so thank you so much. I'll do your socials. Anyways, a huge thank you to Richard for joining me on this show, and also, of course, on my other show. Well, not my show, Caroline's show, but I do produce it, edit it, and direct it. So I guess it's also my network show. That's what I'll say. Thank you, Richard, for joining me on 2 of the shows on my network this year. It has been so much fun and such an incredibly enlightening experience to be able to sit down with a producer and get their opinions, share my opinions, and try to get to the bottom of some issues. So you can follow Richard on Instagram. I believe it's at Richard Darbourne, one word. But also there's the Ambassador Theatre Group Instagrams and social medias. And he also has running at the moment in the West End, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which which is an amazing musical from the album. I can't wait to see it. And also opening in Brisbane this month is Pretty Woman the musical, and that will be touring Australia throughout the rest of this year into next year, I believe. Also, I believe Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club is also running still in London and on Broadway for a few more weeks. So be sure to check out those shows. You can follow us on the socials at Thrash and Treasure or at Thrash and Treasure Podcast. You can buy the Tungsten Tales, read the Tungsten Tales, or my new book, Art for My Sake, which I terribly plugged during the ad break. I'm in the middle of editing 2 episodes. Our next one coming up next week. I've also started working on that one, and also we are launching a brand new show called Speed Junket, which you can look out for on the social medias when we launch. We haven't yet got a launch date that we can tell you. So anyways, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we shall see you next time. Hooroo!
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Take care. Lovely to chat. Cheers, Aaron.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.